Ollie, how does this small town in Norway then fit in to Europe's ambitions around having a defence strategy to meet the needs of the moment?
Yeah, Tom, it's sort of a surreal experience kind of getting here. You go through the sort of Norwegian mountains and the fjords and the valleys here into a really kind of small and sleepy town where you have just built a new missile factory here. And this is Kongsberg. This is one of the biggest defense contractors in Europe. And this is exactly what they're building here now. These are these naval strike missiles, also the joint strike missiles. And it really kind of puts the rubber of the road, this defense conversation that we've had in Europe. All the politicians saying we need to build up, we need to build up to build up. That costs a lot of money. This new facility that we're standing in that just got built, again, this starts operating today. It's a 150 million euro investment. And what they also need is the confidence, contracts going into the future that these investments make sense to make. Otherwise, there's no sort of point. But Tom, the other thing that we need to take into account, of course, is time. The idea for this factory started in 2021. This was before the war in Ukraine. So we're talking 3 years plus until you get sort of the idea of building out this sort of hardware and actually having it roll off the assembly line.
OK, so that time frame is important, isn't it, in terms of how we think about how Europe can get match fit for this new geopolitical reality. The missiles behind you, the ones they're manufacturing there, Ollie, what are they? What are they used for? How are they likely to be deployed on the battlefield?
Yeah, Tom. So these are the naval strike missiles. This is what this is here. This is a 1-to-1 scale. I'm told it's not active. So in the front of it, you have the sort of all the navigational hardware, the sensors and all of that sort of thing. And what's really interesting is that the joint strike ones, which are the ones that are a little bit bigger than this, these are what go into the F-35s, the sort of pristine, state-of-the-art military hardware from the United States. And the reason they've selected these missiles is because Norway had very sort of specific needs for these sorts of missiles. First of all, this is 400 kilograms, 4 meters long, but it needs to be able to navigate over mountains, down fjords, and track the water. And these basically you can sort of set on a target in the sort of shore about 200 kilometers away, and it will strike them with extreme accuracy. And this is sort of the thing that you can put in the F-35s, but you can also put them on the back of a truck. You can put them kind of all over the place. So really sort of mobile. And you'll find them with the U.S. military, Poland, the UK. This is all over the world. So this all in this sort of small town in Norway goes out to the militaries and deployed in battlefields really all over the world.
OK, so that's the global picture. Ollie, as you stand there, hopefully at an inactive missile, talk to us about how Norway itself is building out its own defence. Of course, it shares a border with Russia. That's clearly a challenge. But it's also a country that has, this massive sovereign wealth fund. It is cash rich. What is Norway doing in this space specifically?
Yeah, Tom, Norway sits in a sort of very interesting place. Obviously, it's exceedingly wealthy from its sovereign wealth fund. But also, you have to remember, this war in Ukraine, it's benefited massively financially from higher oil and gas prices, sort of the only sort of seller here in Europe. So it's done very, very well. But it's also very sort of socially progressive, very sort of concerned about making the right decisions in terms of ethical investing. The sovereign wealth fund, for example, won't touch any defense company that has anything to do with sort of nuclear missiles, right? So there's a sort of contradiction there. It's also home to the Nobel Peace Prize here in Norway, but they've decided to sort of really change their track in terms of military spend. They want to hit 2% this year for NATO. By 2030, they're going to hit closer to 3%, and by 2036, they're going to be spending 4% of GDP on defense. So for Norway, it's a very serious concern, particularly with the border with Russia, not necessarily because of a military invasion, but also their oil and gas fields, which we know have been sort of targeted by drones and all kinds of other things that have been very concerning here for the government.